We're all told to hustle, right? Climb that ladder, build a successful life. But what if we're building it all on a really shaky foundation? Today, we're going to dig into a pretty radical idea that true empowerment, and yeah, even true wealth, doesn't start with what you do, but with who you are. Let's get into it.
Does this feel familiar at all? You're checking all the boxes, you look successful from the outside, but on the inside, there's just this nagging feeling that something's off. You're productive for sure, but are you purposeful? And that's the core tension we're going to tackle today. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at what's called the purpose paradox, something a lot of us are living in. Then we'll put two totally different views of success side by side. After that, we'll dive deep into this idea of a God-given identity, check out the real-world benefits of living with purpose, and finally, look at how we can actually start to make this change in our own lives. Okay, so let's jump right into this purpose paradox. It's that crazy feeling of being constantly busy, getting stuff done, but still feeling like you're not really moving toward anything that truly matters. Now, this entire framework we're exploring today comes from the Heal the World Network. It's a daily gazette that looks at life and everything that comes with it, but through a faith-based lens. So just keeping that in mind is going to be pretty key to understanding where these ideas are coming from. And here's the main problem they point to. From the time we're kids, we're pushed to build a career, to be productive, to achieve. But how often does anyone stop and ask us to first figure out who we actually are? The result, they argue, is that so many of us are building these impressive lives on what they call a borrowed identity, one that's based on what the world expects, not on our true God-given purpose. And that leads us to a really big fork in the road. We have to choose between two completely different ways of looking at success and, well, ourselves.
Okay, so on one side, you've got the world's view. It says your identity is something you have to build from the ground up, right? Brick by brick, with your skills, your hustle, your achievements. It's all about what you make of yourself. But then there's the other side, what this source calls God's view. And this says your identity is something you discover. It's like finding buried treasure. It's already there. It's what God made you to be. And in this way of thinking, purpose comes first, and all the success and prosperity follows from that. So you have to ask yourself, which path are you on? So if we decide to go down that second path, what does this God-given identity actually look like? Well, the source says it's basically unbreakable, and it uses a pretty dramatic story to show us why. Just picture this for a second. There's a king, and he gets this message from God that he absolutely hates. He gets so angry that he takes the sacred scroll it's written on, slices it up, and literally tosses it in the fire. He thinks he could just burn the truth away. But here's the incredible part. What does God do? He just has the prophet write it all down again, and then he adds even more to the message. The point here is so powerful. You cannot destroy a truth that God has established, and that goes for your identity too. The truth of who God says you are, well, you just can't burn that down. And this idea, it's rooted in scriptures that are thousands of years old. Like this verse from Jeremiah, which says that even before you were formed, God knew you and set you apart for a purpose. Just let that sink in for a minute. Your purpose isn't something you have to invent out of thin air. It's something you were literally born with. The source actually highlights 3 powerful examples to really drive this home. First, that story about Jeremiah shows your purpose is way tougher than any opposition. Second, the book of Proverbs teaches that your integrity, your good name, is an asset that's more valuable than all the money in the world. And third, the story of Jericho shows that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs don't come from our brilliant strategies, but from just trusting and obeying a plan from God, even when it sounds a little crazy. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but what about the real world? What actually happens when you make this shift from building an identity to discovering one? Why does this really matter day to day? Well, according to the source, when you make this change, 5 huge things start to transform in your life. Your work isn't just a job anymore. It becomes an expression of your integrity. Your mental health gets better because you finally stop playing that endless comparison game. Your finances become more stable because they're built on your true calling. You find this deep, healthy sense of contentment, and you start to see how you can make a real, lasting impact on the world. And let's dig into that financial point for a sec. The source says that your character, who you are, is the most bankable asset you have. And it makes sense, right? Think about it. When people trust you, when they know you operate with integrity, they're way more likely to partner with you, to invest in you, to open doors for you that no amount of money could ever unlock on its own. All right, so you might be thinking, okay, I'm in. This sounds way better than just hustling. But how do I actually do it? That's a great question. Let's get practical. The source lays out 5 really clear, faith-based steps to start this journey. It begins with looking inward and asking a tough question about your relationship with God. From there, it moves into action. Things like sharing your story with someone, praying for others, actively practicing gratitude, and really spending time meditating on key scriptures. These aren't just rules to follow, they are the actual tools for building a brand new foundation for your entire life. And really, it all comes down to this one final powerful question. It's a challenge, really. It shifts the focus away from what do I do for a living and moves it to what was I made for? And answering that question, well, that could change absolutely everything.